Hello and welcome to USTS, the Ultimate Sports Training Show. I'll be your host for today's show, Bob Lemire. And joining me on today's show, Taekwondo martial artist, master, and professional golfer. God only knows what else he's doing. Mr. Bob Jacobs. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. I not a professional golfer, but a golf professional. Different.
Golf professional. Well, yeah. No, we'll talk about that. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, a golf professional. Still,
It's
a golf professional. That's something that And as we were just talking with Gary, there's billions of people in this world, and I don't think there's a handful of golf professionals that are masters in Taekwondo. Imagine that combination.
I think there's a lot of professional athletes that become professional golfers, but also enter into the golf profession and become golf professionals.
Right.
And I think the sports aspect of it is something that they feed on, and they need that. As you get older, your body says to you, hey, I think it's time to do something a little bit different that your body can handle, and you have the desire to compete professionally or compete on an amateur level with golf. So you enter into golf, you learn your golf swing, and you try to get very proficient with that. And I think that when you reach certain levels, then you make a determination as to where your ability goes and what you can do with the knowledge and the athleticism that you have. And I think that for me, I tried a lot of amateur events when I was younger, and I competed with that, and I competed in the section events and that, and I played some of the PGA match play tournaments and in Port St. Lucie that were run by the PGA of America, and and I got to compete with play with a lot of very proficient and professional golfers. But I also got a good realization as to where my abilities were, and I found myself as a better coach than a better player.
Yeah.
And
Because of starting late. You started fairly late.
Yeah, I started extremely late.
Right.
I didn't really begin golf until I started to settle down from Taekwondo.
Right, yeah. And what a transition.
And Taekwondo was a transition, I think, not a point in my life that really inspired me to do a lot of things.
Right.
And
the confidence that Grandmaster Lee, under Grandmaster Lee, the great Mu Young Lee, God rest his soul.
But when we both started out in the dojang, or what people would call the gym, and that, I think you and I started in a Lowell dojang.
1972,
3.
So look at 50 years ago. We're not that old, but I mean,
when I look in the mirror, I don't see my age.
No,
so
you don't feel it either.
No.
I mean, you know what? And by all the training we did, your body in the good years got stronger. And even now, we're not training the same as we used to. Your golf, I'll bet you're doing some walking and you're doing some swinging. You don't realize what you're doing.
I do things. When I was able to enhance my training and learning ability with golf based on my discipline that I acquired from Taekwondo.
Right.
And going back to the Taekwondo days, we built a lot of core strength. You got tenacious. Some of the tenets of Taekwondo are very helpful in my spiritual growth and also my physical growth in that. And I think that being tenacious, using tenacity as one of the tenets.
Not giving up.
But it was
not giving up.
That was the thing. And
we used to have classes in Connecticut, because we drive to Connecticut together.
Right.
Grandmaster Lee had a school down there, and on a Saturday we drive 2 hours down there. I remember it'd be 95 degrees out. He had no air conditioning. He'd maybe keep the one door open in the back and have a 2-hour class. and destroy us. Remember, he denies it, because I tell him about it, he denies it. But I remember those days. And if you could live through one of his classes, and all his classes were the same, but in that heat and stuff, everything else is kind of.
I think what was worse than Connecticut was in Lawrence, Massachusetts, on Essex Street, not in the McQuaid building, but he had an older building.
Oh yeah.
And in the middle of the summer, it would be 100 degrees out, and he'd close the windows.
Too bad.
And we'd be working out inside with no ventilation.
That's old school. And no water. You have water when he tells you. Yeah, they kind of changed their ways. But that's a Korean. No, and he was in the Korean Army. He was what is he, a drill sergeant? I don't know what he was. They just had no sympathy is a good word for what was happening to you during your workout. It's only going to get you stronger.
Yeah, the Korean way was to build resistance and that mental fortitude that you're going to have to be a warrior.
Right.
And people don't understand that. Now today, when people go into a dojang or a gym, it might be time for a cupcake or a little cup of tea or something like that in between the workout.
You got to keep them happy, or you lose money. It turned into a money thing or you lose your.
Well, he wasn't interested in the money either.
No,
and
that's what it was. It was a total different world.
Right.
And by that, anything you do in your life after training that hard, that many years, many years we trained together, it seems like, boy, I think I've done that's about as hard of a physical thing you can do. And it's not just physical, it was mental. Because you had to go, and you've exhausted sometimes. Too bad, just work out. You come to class. And
yeah, one of the things that drove you to go to the class was that your camaraderie with the other guys that you worked out with. You knew that they were going every day. You didn't want them to get a step ahead of you.
No.
And every day you learned something. So that was the
competition and the competitive edge that golf is like, oh, this is just like what I was doing, but in a whole different, a little slower, a little more concentration. But the training that we did, the coordination and the muscles and everything that had to work together all the time had to help you with the golf.
It absolutely. When looking back, I know that the balance and the core strength that I developed from Taekwondo helped me with my golf swing, and it helps. And it's with me today. And when people look at my golf swing, when people look at the way that I hit the ball at my age, they wonder where my strength comes from. And my strength is through a combination of technique and core balance and strength that I've developed over the course of my life. And that goes back to how do we train a youngster into developing into a good golfer, and that's another thing that I've given a lot of thought to. And what I found is that when you take the development of a youngster, you want to develop him through a lot of core exercises. Taekwondo is perfect for that because it's very rounded in the way it teaches people for that athleticism and that balance.
Do you advise little kids?
I'll advise them to do
martial arts,
taekwondo, but soccer,
anything
football, anything, but not to be repetitive to the same thing over and over again. As in their developmental ages, when they're 8 years old, 7 years old, and that stuff, some parents bring their children in and they want nothing but to give them a golf swing, and they don't do anything but 100% of the time it's golf. And they dump them on the golf instructor, the coach, or whatever, and they say, okay, you have my kid all day long. I just want him to do golf. That kid doesn't develop like the youngster who gets out and becomes more rounded in his athletic ability.
Has some fun.
And we found that the ones that really succeed and get very good are the ones that actually had done a lot of different sports prior to golf. And they did. I went to a coaching summit, and we had a person who was teaching a lot of high schoolers, and he did a study on that, and he found that children that did do a lot of rounded sports, a lot of different sports prior to their mid-teens, developed better in golf and had more of a potential of becoming a golf professional or a collegiate golfer than the ones that didn't.
Right.
You know, but you have the abnormality of the Tiger Woods, where his father took him at a very young age and they gave him nothing but golf. But then you got to ask yourself, well, what happened to him physically? You know?
That's what I'm saying. You think all that is what killed him right now? It blew his back out?
It's possible.
We don't know. And
yeah.
Because, I mean, your back constantly going in that same direction. And even though, and do you just go the opposite direction as much as you can to balance that out?
You do. There's a variety of different training techniques that you learn over the years. I was very fortunate that after my Taekwondo days, I joined a golf club, and I didn't know how to hit the golf ball or anything like that. But I said, I'm going to just join a golf club and have some fun. So they had this event called a pro member, and I got a professional picked. It was going to be my playing partner that was an old timer, and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, oh God, what do I got? I got this guy by the name of Bill Lesnicki. I had no idea who he was. And I look at him, he's got suede shoes on, and he's all dapper and decked out and that stuff, and he's in his early 60s.
Yeah.
And
I was old in those days. He's just a kid right now.
And so I'm looking at this guy, and I'm saying, oh God, you know. And so we played, and it was a very hot day, and he shot, I think, like maybe 70 or something like that, and I might have shot 100. Yeah. And but I persevered through my round of golf, and at the end of the round of golf, we sat down and we had a couple of beers together, and we started talking. And he wanted to teach me, and he gave me his card, and he says, why don't you come down and visit me? He was the teaching pro at the International in Bolton, Mass. And I said, I'll come down. All right, so I gave him a call, and I came down, and that first lesson was about 4 hours long. I remember that. And then after the session, he says to me, and I said, how much I owe you? He said, no. He says, nothing. I said, what do you mean? He said, don't worry about it. He says, give me another call and just come back. So I didn't call him, and I waited a few weeks, and after a few weeks, I get a phone call, and it's Bill Lesnicki, and he says, hey, what's the matter? You didn't like the lesson?
Wow.
And I said,
I like this guy already. Yeah.
But I said, no. I said it was fantastic, and I had taken some lessons from a variety of different golf professionals, local ones, and I didn't get any satisfaction or anything like that. And I said, no, I don't want to impose on you. And he looked at me and he says, you're not imposing on me. He says, I make a decision as to who I want to teach. Nice. And he says, and I want you to come back. So we started from that day to a friendship, and I also protéged under him, and I put in relentless hours of repetitive practice with him. I hit more golf balls with him that people would hit in a lifetime, and our sessions would last anywhere from 3 to 6 hours.
After like 3 or 6 hours, I mean that's incomprehensible for me. You must be like, thank God for the Taekwondo training over the years, but that seems like your top of your body, the upper part of your body would be like drained.
I would be sore. I would be sore, but I said I will accept everything that this guy wants to dish out at me, and eventually I would come with extra gloves in my back pocket, Band-Aids in my back pocket. We did not stop. It was a Muyang Lee moment.
That's what I'm saying. You've had one of the greatest and the other greatest. God was good to you. I'm telling you right now, good for you.
He would not allow. We would not stop for water. So I mean, that he would stand over me, and we would
wow.
just hit one ball after another, and it would be the same repetitive shot every single time. So it wasn't like, oh, you're gonna go through your golf bag, you're gonna hit the, you're gonna hit the 9 iron, 8 iron. No. I had a sand iron, and that's all I hit was that sand iron for 4 or 5 hours and that stuff, and
Oh my God.
and so that was, and then we do drills, and every time that we had a session, we had a different drill, and so I have a repertoire of different practice sessions. I used to take notes, and he always used to say to me, "Well, you better write it down."
Yeah.
And I have notes that I look back at that are just
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
it's like reminiscing in an old book, and it brings a smile to you because you remember the session that you went through. You remember the results that you got from those from those lessons. But his background is not like he's just a regular golf teacher. He was an athlete. He was a person that came from Canada, and he was a hockey player.
Okay, there you go.
And and he also was a golfer. As a youngster, he played golf in the summer. He played hockey in the winter. And I asked him, I says, you became an NHL 3-time Stanley Cup hockey player, right?
Yeah.
And I says, a professional hockey player. And then you went on the PGA Tour after that. I says, but your passion was the PGA Tour. Why didn't you go with the golf?
Right, yeah.
He says, well, when we were young, our parents directed us as to which way we were going to go. And he says, and they moved me towards hockey. And he says, the next thing I know, I'm playing in the NHL. Wow. And he played for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He won 3 Stanley Cups with them. Wow. And he got released from the New York Rangers because he was in a Stanley Cup playoff, and that day he played 36 holes of golf, and they found out about it, so they released him at the end of that season, and then he went on to the PGA Tour. So he played with the likes of Ben Hogan and those people there, and so I asked him. I said, well, how did you develop your golfing technique? And he says, well, back then, he says, people didn't teach you. He says, what you did is you observed from the people that were winning. Right. And he says, and that's how you learned the golf swing. He says, and you would always observe the winners and say, what are they doing really good? And he says, you try to emulate them. Right. And so he became very good friends with Ben Hogan. And a lot of his style in his golf swing was a lot of the Ben Hogan philosophy and golf swing. Oh. And so I was very fortunate that I got to learn and develop my golf swing from a person who had an incredible amount of athleticism, and he had good eyes as far as being able to build a golf swing and that stuff. But he also was a person that had the tenacity to practice relentlessly, and he would do so to the point where he'd wear himself out. And so when he picked somebody to protege under him, he would expect them to have the same type of training.
Well, he must have known. When you talked to him after those first 2 beers, you must have mentioned the martial arts and taekwondo. He must have said, "All right."
No. That did not.
It never occurred that he knew he had a tough kid.
That didn't come till later.
Later on, okay.
Okay, yeah. But I also I didn't realize how tough he was.
That's right. Yeah. Is
he
still with us?
But, no, he's not. He passed away. But he was his nickname on the in the NHL was called Wild Bill, and he had a reputation for fighting, and he was a small guy. He was 150.
That's beautiful.
He was one of the toughest guys in the NHL. He has. I mean, you can look him up on.
I will. I'll Google him. Yeah.
And you read him, and that's it. But I think he also has the record for the most penalty minutes in a Hall of Fame game. And that's not a Hall of Fame, a All-Star game.
And that's without imagine. And that's without the helmets, I would imagine.
No helmets.
No helmets at the time.
No. Yeah. He had a lot of battle scars. So he actually adapted his swing to compensate for a bad tendon that he had in his left thumb. So he couldn't use his left thumb, and if you take your left thumb off the shaft when holding on to to a golf club as a right-handed golfer, you find out it's very difficult to do.
Right. Yeah, you gotta hold it tight.
No, so he would grip it and not use his thumb at all.
Yeah.
So it was pretty unique.
That's wild.
But I think. And he used to poke me all the time, So, like, if I was doing something wrong, he'd take the butt end of the
like
club.
Mr. Leewood. Well, Jacobs. Bob Jacobs. What?
Yeah. So I actually ended up in a parallel universe of two different teachers
That's
in
wild.
two different.
That's what I'm saying. That is wild. And they're both up there watching this podcast, going, "That's not how it was." Bob Jacobs. Yeah, that is so funny. That's excellent. Did you ever think of writing memoirs or anything? I mean, you have some. I imagine stories you could tell.
I have. I have some. I have a unique style of teaching that I can bring on to all different levels. And if somebody comes to me and they're looking for a golf correction, then I can do that without making any major changes in their golf swing and that. But if somebody comes and wants to reconstruct their golf swing, I have the ability to be able to build and reconstruct a golf swing. Right. So, I mean, I've been, I've taken and I've studied a lot of videos of the professional golfers. I look in and you say, well, what is in common of all these golfers? What do they do that everybody? What do they do that's in common to each other, right? That we should be doing in that stuff, and then try to break everything down. But what my mentor did was he gave me the ability to build different, to look at somebody's body when they're swinging a golf club, and being able to see how their body is working when they're swinging their golf clubs. Look and see their weaknesses, see their where they're unbalanced, where they're weak, where their core strength lacks. I can look at somebody swinging a golf club, and walking up to them on the lesson tee, almost have the complete diagnosis of what I'm dealing with and what I have to do to build a golf swing.
You see someone with, say, core, they don't have the core, or they don't have the unbalance. It's not always the swing. You got to teach. What do you have them do? Exercises. Here, do this certain exercise every day, or do that stretch every day. Is that
absolutely?
Yeah.
I can take. I'll take and have people move their lower body a certain way, and I'll show them a specific exercise. It's not too difficult to do,
right.
But
do it.
Okay. And I can tell if they do it. I have some students that will actually do it, and I'll say, look in the mirror and do this repetitively 10 times a day, or do it 30 times and do 3 reps at 10, and you can see that the development from that, and like holding a golf club, showing somebody how to hold a golf club is basically, you could do that in your living room. You can take the handle of the golf club. Once you learn the proper pressure points in your hand, then take the grip it, and practice gripping the golf club in your living room, and then take it on to your instructor, and he'll correct it again.
Right. Yeah.
I think the majority of the golfers that we see today they have a bad golf grip, and they want to improve their golf swing. But one of the major things that they don't want to discipline themselves with is being able to hold on to the handle, and that's where the connection is to your body. So it starts with the hands, and it works its way down to your feet.
What's now? I'm hearing there's golf colleges down in Florida or wherever, probably all over. What's with that? What's with the golf colleges?
It's everybody's looking to make a dollar. The golfing industry is billions of dollars, billions and billions of dollars, and everybody wants a piece of that. So that if we can, convince people to become teachers, and I don't know of any easy road to be a teacher. It'd be somebody like Lee Trevino says, well, I'll never take a lesson from somebody that can't beat me. Well, then again, Muhammad Ali was being coached by a person that never boxed.
Imagine.
So I think the eyes of a person are very important. His knowledge is very important, and you don't get those eyes and you don't get that knowledge unless you understand it, and then you can feel it.
Right.
And I think that that a person really needs to develop a certain amount of feeling with their golf swing to be able to instill that feeling onto somebody else. If you understand what it feels like to hit a golf ball, then you can teach somebody how to get that feeling. But if you don't have any idea how it feels,
and the confidence in yourself, and like you say, tenacity to train and stuff. One question, because things come into my head and I don't want to forget them because there's so much I could ask you. But do you still make all your own golf clubs? No.
No.
You used to.
No, I'm on.
I used to make golf clubs. Hey, what the heck?
But I do. I used to do a lot of repair work. I used to tweak golf clubs for a lot of people. Bend them, grind them, and customize the golf clubs for players and that stuff. I was very fortunate. I worked in the Charlotte Country Club, and we had the Champions Tour there. And when the tour vans left during the week, then the tour players would come to me and get a little tweaking on their golf clubs or any type of repair and stuff like that. So
that must have been wild. Some of the people who you've met.
I've met a lot of very interesting golfers, a lot of proficient golfers, and I've had the opportunity to play with a few, and it's a different level, and it'd be like going in a ring with a professional boxer, and you're an amateur.
Now, do you find yourself? Because I could, you're watching them, and all of a sudden they're just doing these things. But you have confidence in yourself. Is it just you and the ball at that point and just say, well, this is how I play, and they're going to have to, we'll see how it works. I mean,
you and the ball, I think it's you and the golf course. You're playing against the golf course.
The golf course, yeah.
And so every time you tee it up, it's there's nobody's fault but your own. Right. And you also have to have a very calm mind to play really good golf. You can't be worried about the traffic that you encountered coming up to the first tee, or you don't like Mr. Jones that's in your group because the way he talks and stuff like that. Yeah. So you have to take the environment and you have to make it part of you, and or make yourself block it out, block out the interference. Right. I think it would be more so interference. I think Ben Hogan said it right. He says that if you can hear the flapping of the butterfly in the other fairway, then you're not concentrating.
There you go. Well, I remember the story like Tiger Woods' father would throw clubs on the ground as he was swinging as just a little kid. And when he'd get all frustrated, he says, well, if you can't handle that, how are you going to handle tour and blah, blah, blah. So, it's got to be true.
Well, that's funny with people throwing clubs and showing their frustration. And I had one guy who tossed the club, and I actually stopped and I looked at him and I says, did you really think that you could execute that shot? And he looked at me puzzled, right?
Yeah, you always had a good comeback for a lot of that. in the calm manner, as I remember. It's funny because we were training together for, God, I don't know, I would say 20-something years or whatever, maybe. And I think maybe in the 80s we stopped, or the
80s, yeah.
Sometime in the 80s. That's like over 30 years ago. And I don't think I've seen you in maybe a handful of times.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. We both, you went to your way, I went mine, and we had families and grandchildren, and everything just happened. But I always tell everybody about that. I know a golf pro and a Taekwondo master, and it's like the both of them. It to me it just always flowed me that one right into the other, and if Grandmaster Lee. But now, were you a pro when Grandmaster Lee was alive?
Yes.
Did you get to golf with him as a pro when he was alive?
I would set him up golfing.
Yeah.
I think we golfed. Matter of fact, I think we only played a few holes together. I was always so busy, but I would make it a point to invite him up to come up to one of the clubs where I was a director and to have him come down as my guest.
He did pretty well for a guy who started when he was probably in his 50s.
He was actually hit the ball pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, so that was, and he hit the ball pretty long for
good backswing, good follow through.
Yeah,
the hip.
And it was funny because you know, I think he developed a super passion to golf.
Oh, he did. Every time I'd have a test in Pelham, Bob, can we go golfing? And I said, Mr. Lee, after they're having a party, and okay, I'm going to take your wife to Pine Valley, and we're going to play 9 holes. You would take Diane.
Well, we did play once with Young Lee, and then we were in the same group together, and we finished in the dark on the last hole, and you couldn't see the putt.
You, me?
Yeah.
You, me, Joe,
and Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And we putted the ball on the green, and you couldn't see the ball rolling on the green.
That's right. Yeah. But at that point, you were pro. You were kind of just in the not beginning, but you've already played a few years.
Yeah,
with Joe Tropiano.
I was just getting involved, and I didn't get involved in the PGA until my early 40s.
Right.
Which is when you looked at the people that were entering into the business, they were all young 20-year-old people and stuff. So you were looked at as one of the old timers, you know. Right. And it's a good old boy network. They don't invite you in that easily, so you have to earn it, and it takes a little bit of time, you know. And it's too bad because I don't have that disrespect to anybody. I think that anybody that wants to learn something or change their life and do something different, embrace it and help them. But in this world, I think there's a lot of people that look at that as a threat, and I think what I saw in my younger days is that a lot of the people in the golf profession were looking at you as a threat, and they wouldn't let you in that easily. And I had moved down into Florida in the winter season to get the experience that I needed, and I remember going through the pounding on the doors in Florida to get into a facility so I could get the experience and everything, and they wouldn't let me in. But I persevered through that and pounded on the door so much that I had one particular club that I wanted to get into and to work, and the guy wouldn't return my phone calls, and I started calling him once every 2 weeks, and I called him once a week, and then I was calling him once a day.
Tenacity.
Then I called him every 15 minutes, right? And he finally picked up the phone and he said, "I know who you are," and he says, "Come on down."
That's good. Yeah, why not? And then
I got the job.
Yeah.
So and that job, that opened the door. I knew that if I got into the right facility, I would meet a lot of good people.
Right.
And that's what I did.
In the environment. You're in the environment, you suck right into
got into
that.
the right environment, and from there, that built in my resume, because I had no golf experience resume that people would look at me and say, "Do you want to hire this guy as a club pro?" So that opened the door.
Yeah. And so you had no resume for it. What did you show him what you could do, or is that he wanted to say?
No, they actually they started me right from the bottom, and the first job I had was picking the range and cleaning the golf balls, and
working your way in there. They get to know you.
Working in the bag room, and I found out that the bag room job that I had was better than working in the pro shop. I was making more money, and
That's wild.
and so
That's wild, yeah.
I did that, and from there we got golfing privileges, and at this particular club, which had 3 golf courses, we had somewhere around 25 PGA golf professionals that played out of that facility, and it was funny. I would practice every day, and it was an old timer that was working there, and he was in his 70s, and he used to used to observe him practicing, and I talked to some of the young guys, and they said, "Oh, that's Charlie Huckleby," and nobody recognized him or anything like that. And I said, "Do you play golf with him?" "Oh, no, no, no." So I went up to him and I invited myself to play golf with him, and I found out that he had a couple of top 10 finishes in the U.S. Open, and he went out and he taught me how to play on. Back then, it was old Bermuda grass.
Yeah.
And he taught me how to play in Florida golf, and I got an education from him to playing in a different golf environment, and we became friends. And he taught me another old timer that was giving back. You know.
Well, you know what it is. You have the kind of a laid back attitude, not threatening attitude, which you always had. You know, you always have a good personality, and they like that. They don't want any hotshot come in, think he's a wise guy, but you're going to talk to you, and you're going to show you, and you're going to listen. And they already probably at that point know that you got some stuff together, you know. And
golf is very humbling, because no matter what a person looks like, you don't know what his ability is, and it can be very deceitful. You know,
that's for sure.
You can look at the guy that looks like the athlete, and he can't hit it past his shoelaces, and then you look at this other guy that looks like a cream puff, and you're going, man, this guy can hit the ball.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's when you say humbling, you know, you can't be a big shot, not know what you're doing, and go out there and try to be a big shot. You know what I'm saying?
But with golf, you can if you allow yourself to observe other people on the golf course, you can always learn something.
Right.
And you learn something about their character. You learn something about their golf swing, their persona, or whatever. It's you can learn a lot on the golf course about people.
Right.
It's a good place.
Right. Yeah. Do you do a lot of do you? I know you're a reader and stuff. So the psychological. Do you read up a lot on psychology, on teaching and?
I spent 2 seminars with Dr. Robert Winters out of Orlando, Florida, and he's a sports psychologist, and he trained a lot of professional golfers in their mannerism on how to they can behave themselves on a golf course.
Right.
So I got a nice little education with him on how your attitude should be, how you should be looking at bad shots, how you should be looking at good shots, how you should level your emotions.
Right.
You know, you'd be surprised how emotions have a big aspect to your golf performance.
So when you're out there, and if anyone ever played, listening to the show, played golf, check the rule book. It's probably I don't know how thick, and so when you bring people out, and all of a sudden I can almost picture you. You're going out there and you're seeing this kid all over the place with the rules and the etiquette, and everything's just completely off you. And I can almost hear you, kind of sarcastic, like, "You really can't do that." Am I right? I mean, well, you got to learn some of the rules. You got to go. Here's the book. Here's a little rule book.
We do have some people that don't know the rules of golf. So,
and they've only been playing for 25 years. Yeah.
Well, they know the rules. It's their rules.
Yeah, it's their rules.
So
especially in tournaments, and well, you can't move it like that, sir. Well, I always do.
And and we have, and I've encountered people that have violated rules and that stuff, and you got to be very diplomatic on how you enforce them.
Yeah.
You also have to look at, what does it mean? the enforcement of that rule, how is it going to affect the outcome of the tournament,
Right.
or the outcome of the match, or something like that?
But you still have to enforce it, whether it's
Well, there's different ways of enforcing
Right,
it. You know, you can bring it to somebody's attention without.
or just
If it's not going to really affect the match, and say, you know what,
can't.
this is what you did wrong and stuff like that. But in certain instances, if they're playing for something, then sometimes you have to bring that rule forward, and you have to make it stand, and it's up to them to understand what the rule is.
Well, we just talked about before the show. Matsuyama got disqualified this week. Now, his caddy, himself, his coaches, they must know the rules for what he did. And when he marked his club the way he did, they disqualified him. Now, you've golfed this much, you've won PGA tournaments, and you didn't know that rule? That's got to be one of the easiest rules. I mean, you think about it, right?
You're right.
Well, I had 42 clubs in my bag. I mean, what's wrong with that? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if these professionals kind of don't, imagine like a guy like myself, a weekend golfer.
I think that sometimes people get caught up in the moment, and they're focused on certain things, and his caddy, it is his caddy's responsibility to understand that, to know, to make sure that he is abiding by the rules and that. So they are a team, and I think that's very important.
So I'm wondering if a guy like that has done it every tournament, and does that affect his PGA? But they couldn't prove it anyway because they didn't call him on it then.
No.
So the game's over at that point. But how long has he been doing it?
It's just for that tournament.
That tournament, yeah. Well, you must have some stories that's what I'm saying. You could write a book on the stories that people do and what you've seen in games.
Yeah.
Because I haven't played probably a tenth of what you've played in your life, and I could tell you stories.
I think the funniest thing is the way that people behave on the golf course. Like you can be in an environment where you're dealing with the most affluent people, and it's funny because when they come through the gates on the property of the golf course, it's like everything that made them successful kind of disappears, and you're wondering where this person came from. Sometimes the questions that you get are so ridiculous, and you're looking at it and you're saying, this is a CEO of a corporation asking me this question. It's a very humbling game, I've been very fortunate because of my teaching ability is to meet some of the most affluent people in the country, and being able to teach them, looking at people that are very successful in what they do, and they're coming to you for a golf lesson.
Right.
I've had neurologists, orthopedics, top attorneys, CEOs of major corporations.
And you were doing it when you were teaching Taekwondo.
Yeah.
We're talking lawyers and some doctors, pretty affluent people, and they'd come in, white belt, and you're the black belt, and you're showing this. You remember. So it kind of, your life has been revolving around teaching somebody something.
Yeah, everybody, they want what you got. And that's
Can you please show me? Yeah.
Right.
That's
but there's no shortcut. But they're looking also, when they pick out a teacher, they're looking for creativity.
Right.
And you need, if you're dealing with very high type A personalities, those people come to you, they need a challenge. And every time they come to you, you have to give them a new challenge. And you can teach them the same thing, but you got to have a different method to teaching the same thing.
Right.
And because they get bored very easily. So you gotta make it challenging for them. And the more you make it challenging, the more they come back. And that's what I try to do is to make them hungry to come back.
There must be nothing more gratifying for yourself is you've been teaching someone here and there, and they win a tournament, or they come in place in a tournament, and then they come back and it's like, well, yeah, you did well,
Yeah, and I've had a few of those that I haven't had anybody on the PGA Tour, but I've had them on the amateur level.
Amateur level, I'm saying, they're from scratch,
yeah.
And all of a sudden they've done well, and it's your technique that you've given them.
I had a youngster that I was able to touch at 8 years old, and he ended up winning the Mass Am, and and I remember having him as a junior teacher, and being, I didn't touch him all the time, but I started with him at a very young age and was able to give him something at 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, and
just kept going and going.
And then he kept going, and I moved on, he moved on, and he became very good at it.
Wow!
So I mean, you like that. You like to see.
That's what it's about.
That you can touch a youngster. I got my granddaughter now that I touched her, and she's got a great golf swing. But she's not golfing; she's doing softball. But she's the star on a team as a shortstop, and so we can't change her softball swing to her golf swing. So we'll let her do softball, and that's part of the thing that we were talking about in the beginning of this podcast, is that getting them rounded with different hand-eye coordinated sports. I mean, hand-eye coordinated sports are very important, and golf is one of those hand-eye coordinated sports. But it's hockey players seem to grasp it a little bit better.
I've noticed that. Hockey players.
And a basketball player. I've done clinics for the Celtics in the off season in their training camp, and I used to have the Bruins training camp at one of the facilities that I worked at, and so I'd get all the young Bruin guys come down, and so after they got beat up in the rink, they'd come down and want to take some golf lessons or play golf and that stuff. So I've had a few of those guys that I get to touch them and see how they would evolve and learn golf. But it was kind of easy with the hockey players because I was taught by the NHL hockey player, and so he used a lot of that technique. I had the pleasure of spending a little time with Dwight Evans, and when Dewey retired from the Red Sox. And we played golf together, and Dewey hadn't played golf, and he was at the time he was at Ferncroft Country Club, and he was looking to get into Salem, and we're playing golf and that stuff. And he said to me, "I can throw the ball further than I can hit it."
Wow.
And I said, but you hit the baseball so well and that stuff. I said, why is it that it's so difficult for you to hit the golf ball? And he said, because all my life, my hand-eye coordination was extended to the end of my hand. Okay. So if you reach your arm in front of your body, he says, that's where my hand-eye coordination stopped. He says, now I'm looking down at a ball on the ground that's twice that length. Oh. And he says, I have to adapt to.
Wow.
And there's another guy that
he knows what.
But he persevered and figured it out, but because he's an athlete.
Oh yeah. Well, it's true. And so say, and with all the coordination and all that, but to be in competition, or to be, when we went to competitions, and you're also Bob Jacobs, also a international referee. Right. International referee at Taekwondo.
You remember when they wouldn't come out to the rink because I was the referee? I don't know if you remember that one.
I remember a lot of stuff. Yeah. No,
I'm going to disqualify that guy. He got 5 minutes to get into the rink. Right? We don't want him.
There was no BS when it come to you. And they didn't care who this guy was and who his instructor was. Right. You were fair with them, and that was supposed to be. But what I'm saying is, so the competition, whether it's baseball, football, taekwondo, whatever, you're so used to the competition, you're so used to not getting over emotional. Some people get over emotional. I need this shot, but you get so used to that, you kind of get numb to it, or you just you settle in with the confidence. I do have the swing. I'm going to just let it happen. You know what I'm saying?
I remember playing in a club, and we were playing a playoff in the Calcutta. So it was my first time that I have a chance to win the Calcutta, and there was a lot of money involved in it. We were talking like maybe $15,000 or something like that in the club, and my partner and I are on the first tee, and I remember that adrenaline going into my body.
$15,000, I would imagine, yeah.
And We and having the whole club come out to watch you on the in a playoff on the first tee, and that was my first experience of. And you know, it's funny because when you're at that level and you go out and you play golf, you feel nervous because I don't know why you feel nervous because you don't expect to be there, but then when you look at a professional golfer and he's inside the ropes, he expects to be there, so he's not nervous. He feels that this is where I belong. This is my venue, so he can walk down inside the ropes and feel very relaxed. And I think that that we all strive for that energy, to harness that energy. So
that it's a high you get.
Yeah,
you're getting that
but
high.
Relax.
Right, an addictive high. And when you sink that 10-footer for the victory or whatever, there's no other higher in the world. And you know,
well, it's funny because when you're competing in Taekwondo and you're in a match, and the other guy's out there to take your head off, your adrenaline is something that you can feed on, but you can explode that energy on him.
Right.
But when you're in golf, that energy is you to the golf ball, and you have to harness that with a calmness. And
not be crazy,
and not be crazy, and not be nervous or anything.
Because I mean, you think about it, and I love watching golf, and I play at DraftKings and stuff. So I could play as that I'm rooting for, so that they can win me some big money. But imagine you get a 5-foot putt. It's going to be PGA Championship, millions and millions and millions of dollars in winnings and endorsements. You got to make this. I'd fall apart. I'd have a breakdown right there. I can see my hands shaking, and if you miss it, you come in fifth.
I mentored. Well, actually, I spent a little time with a person who was also played on tour. His name was Paul Moran, and Paul played on a regular tour and a Champions Tour, and but never had a win. But he told me that there were levels of competition, and he says you have to go through the levels of competition. It's a growing process. And he says the first one is to get into a top 10. He says then you're going to get into contention, and you're going to get into the top 3. Yeah. He says, and then is winning. He says, and it's all 3 different levels that you have to adapt to, and there's nervousness on every one of those levels, but you'll become comfortable, but it takes winning to become comfortable.
And not only that, and I don't know, superstition. You don't have any superstition, do you?
Yeah, I do.
I can only imagine. My shoe. Oh, my right first.
No. My driver golf club has to sit in the golf bag.
All right. Okay.
When I'm in the driver, so
it has to.
It has to sit in the golf bag.
Because one time it didn't. You.
No, it doesn't matter. It just has to sit there.
That's why.
I don't know what's going to happen if it doesn't.
Wow.
It's just. I think I think if you really look at some people in golf, there's a lot of superstition in golf.
Any sport, and all of a sudden, say you got a championship game that day, and you're on the 18th hole, the last hole, or whatever, and that superstition, you say, oh, this just happened. Oh no, I picked up my club the wrong way. So, but that's funny. Because I always had little superstitious things in everything I do, because. At one point I did it, and I did things well. I says, then I'm going to make sure that I do it the same way. Then all of a sudden that can be obsessive. You don't want to get into that. You don't want to get in that groove. Believe me.
It's funny when we were talking about competition and that stuff. I remember refereeing you and Major battle together, and you being one of my close friends, and I have to referee this, and you're fouling.
Yeah.
And I had to,
I had points against me, and but I filed, and I have the whole thing on film. I did foul, but I deserved anything that happened to me. That's you.
But I had to tell you. I remember in that bout going up to you and saying, "Listen, Bob, I don't want to disqualify you, but
don't do that again.
Don't do it again."
Well, and you know what? I have video of it. And the thing was, he come down and crashed an axe kick, and I think he broke my nose at the time. And my instinct was just to punch him straight in the face, and that's what I did. And that's totally against the rules. You can't throw.
Well, that's because you grew up in Lowell.
Well, I knew I didn't want to do that, but it just come out of me, and we're really good friends. Major was on the podcast, but on the Taekwondo show. We wanted to get together, do some little documentary work, and I apologize. He apologizes for breaking my nose twice because we fought twice, and I apologize for. But there's a whole story about me punching him like that, and we won't get it. It's another person who's a famous person today. I don't know if we'll talk about it after. But anyway, so Bob, you got to come back and we'll get some stories together.
All right.
This is so enjoyable because, as I say, we go way back. And when I talk 50 years ago, we kind of started around 50 years. Imagine. And here we are still banging around like crazy kids. And if anyone was 67, if anyone was that age, I'd say, boy, that guy is old. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? I think that our lifestyles make us young.
Yeah. In our family life, we've had really good luck with family life. Great, good kids, grandkids. Right. That keeps you young.
But, at this point, it's nice to give back. And I think that...
and have a good attitude with people. As you said, everyone deserves a chance. And I'm a firm believer in karma. Right. And I believe if you treat someone terrible, you deserve to be treated terrible. That's my whole philosophy in life. So treat everyone with the respect that you want. Grandmaster Lee taught us that, too.
Right.
I've never met a more humble man in my whole life, and it was probably the greatest martial artist I've ever known. He is the greatest.
But for a guy from Korea, after our workouts, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Oh yeah, there you go. And you don't complain.
No.
Don't ever complain. We never complain.
No.
And it's funny because I get to I still see some of the guys, not many. Gary Pelletier, and Jack Shudo. Those are all friends of ours.
Right.
Remember the parties we would have,
right.
Halloween parties, but everyone just goes in their own ways over the years. And I even Jamie Proctor. You remember Jamie Proctor? And I said, Jamie, what happened? Because we lost him for a long time. Even he goes, life, and I love that answer. Life happened.
Yeah.
And
here we are.
You've got to follow. You got to follow what's going to make you some money.
Live life, love life. And enjoy life.
Yeah, and now you've got some beautiful grandchildren, children and grandchildren. Your daughter Alyssa was on the show just about a month ago, running for school committee. And school committee, she should run for state senate. That is one of the most smart. That's the smartest woman I've ever talked to in my life. It's just unbelievable. And that's what I said. That's what keeps you young.
Be careful not to debate her.
After the show, we talked, and she says, "Oh yeah, me and my father have some really heated conversations about politics." And I says, "Oh, I can only imagine. I can imagine with the facts, because she's a facts person. Wow, she knows what she's talking about. That girl.
She will not throw a fact at you without researching it." Oh. And then my son-in-law is a data scientist, so that's all. No, my other daughter's husband, and so all he does is look up things.
And you gotta be ready, and you still argue with them.
No,
I still debate with them.
I use him to argue with Alyssa.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. This is she told me. She says, "Don't start talking politics with him." I says, "Well, we're Facebook friends. I already know what it is. I already know what it is." He says he's pretty passionate, which is good. I mean, we're passionate. Well, we're passionate whatever we do. I'm gonna be passionate whatever I do, and it's just the way you are. That's what's keeping you going. And then you're exhausted, but too bad. Go to bed, go to sleep. Next day, I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll start all over again.
Beautiful.
But, Bob, it's been a fun hour. I appreciate it. Hopefully, we can do it again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob.